everyone! From dramas to webtoons to novels, explore Korea's story with us. This is Who Reads Story. My name is An Sung-jin. I'm a news reporter, and we have Andrea back with us. Please introduce yourself.
Hi everybody. My name is Andrea. I'm from Colombia, and today we are going to talk about movies.
We are going to be talking about movies, and we have talked about this director before in our previous episodes, right? Which one did we talk about?
Yeah, so we already talked about The Handmaiden, then we are going to continue talking about this kind of cinematography of Chan-wook.
Yes.
So which movie we are going to discuss today?
Right, so we will be delving into Park Chan-wook's latest film, which is titled No Other Choice, which I should make sure that the title is correct.
Yeah.
This has been invited to compete at the 82nd Venice International Film Festival, and it has also received a 9-minute standing ovation, which I feel like shows a lot about the movie itself. The global press has been praising about it. It has been receiving a lot of attention. And just like the first line from the protagonist, come autumn, I feel like this film may be defining the season of fall right now, which is almost over, I suppose, but I'm excited to
Yeah,
be
but I
talking
think
about
it's perfect for this moment.
Right.
And when you are watching the movie, you see a lot of kind of greens and how the leaves are turning other colors. So this first line of autumn, it totally goes aligned with the movie.
And it matches with our vibe right now as we enter into fall, basically. This movie itself is the first film in 3 years since Park Chan-wook's previous film, and he has apparently been preparing for 20 years to have this movie screened, which is why I'm excited to be talking about it. I feel like, as you just mentioned, we can delve into his cinematography, his narrative, and the movie itself.
Yeah, but I have a doubt. When I was just seeing the first scene about the movie, it says in English, the title is No Other Choice.
Right.
So I wonder if what is the title in Korean is the same and it's just direct translation, or how is it?
So I mentioned in our introduction that I should make sure that the title comes out correctly as No Other Choice, because in Korean it is called 어쩔수가없다, which sorta does have a similar meaning to the English title to it, but interestingly, it's a bit unique in the sense that it has no space in between the word 어쩔수가없다.
And do you use that often? People use it often?
I feel like it's a phrase that's often used. It's not something that's unusual. I feel like it's quite commonly used, and it's a standard phrase when you want to say oh, I can't help it, but oh well, gotta do it. Gotta go with the flow. Oh well. That's the type of context that we use it, and I feel like in that sense that phrase is often used. And it's interesting because, as I just mentioned, director Park Chan-wook didn't put space in between the entire phrase, and he has purposely done it. The typography is done purposefully to make it look like a compact expression. So for us, even though we use it quite often, I feel like the reason he has done it is because he wants to show it as almost like a single exclamation. It comes out as a single word, no other choice. Oh well.
But now that you're explaining this scene about what it comes behind,
right?
I kind of understood a little bit more about the movie, how the characters behave some way. But this title also kind of settled the move for this season, for autumn. So come autumn again,
yes,
as
I
he
guess
said.
come autumn again, because I feel like in the way it's interesting to see that this expression is often used, but apart from that, as you mentioned, it is kind of related to the season of autumn itself, which is why Park Chan-wook had also considered the title Things to Do in Autumn as well. But I feel like that's less catchy than No Other Choice, because I feel like No Other Choice is very impactful, it's short, it's concise, and the title also draws a lot of curiosity. So I feel like in that sense, he's done a good job choosing this title over the other one, which is Things to Do in Autumn, as much as it relates, I guess, in a sense.
I think that somehow, if we have this direct translation also from Korean, without this explanation regarding autumn and other details, maybe for international viewers it can, I don't know, lost impact.
Right.
But then with this one that is kind of direct, it's oh, okay, so why?
It makes sense, right? But now you question the why, right?
Yes.
It's interesting because, as you mentioned, it in a way is a direct translation of the Korean title, but also at the same time it does draw out some curiosity for the viewers, because what do you mean no other choice? What's gonna be behind the movie?
Exactly.
And in a good way, it's kind of a starter for the viewers itself. I'm just going to quickly check the comments. It's interesting how people have been leaving some reviews, and the title is strangely disturbing and yet at the same time charming. And I feel like that's a good explanation of the movie title itself, just as Andrea and I have been talking about. Now, if we want to delve a bit more into the movie itself, the movie No Other Choice is based on a novel. And as we mentioned, Park Chan-wook, the director, has been working on this movie. He had the intention of developing it into a film for more than 20 years. And Andrea, since, as a former book club member, please introduce what the novel itself is about that has been developed into his recent film.
Well, so the director wanted to portray somehow this movie since 2009. So
right.
many years. But then actually it was already adapted,
into a different movie,
yeah.
Right.
So which one is the book? So the book is based on, the film is based on an American book that is called The Axe, from Donald Westlake.
Right.
And this one is kind of social satire,
right.
Cynical. And then almost for 30 years ago, so it was published in 1997. And in this one, we have this story of Burke the Board, that is a middle-aged man. He's working in this paper company, has been working there almost
ages,
his whole life.
Right.
And then he just got fired.
Right.
And then the things with all his life just turn around. Then what I'm going to do? I don't have this job. So he begins to hunt somehow the people that has similar resumes to him. In that order, he's going to eliminate the competition. And
right.
then that one is also what we are going to see in the movie.
Right. I feel like you give a good description of how the movie or how the novel plays out. But in fact, what you just mentioned is actually kind of incorporated within Park Chan-wook's latest film, because the film basically transposes the novel's narrative, but more so into the Korean society. Yep. So it basically gets the plot and puts it into the way how Koreans would find it more familiar. So we have the main character, Bansu, who's basically the protagonist that you've just mentioned, the novel. He also works in this paper manufacturing company. He's been worked in this company for a really long time. He's this devoted family man. But just as the protagonist from the novel, he gets fired all of a sudden. And now that he has no place to go, he basically does the same thing. He puts up all these advertisements for jobs and he eliminates all his competitors. And it kind of shows in a way how our main character changes into this monster, or how he transforms into this no longer devoted family man, hard worker. And I feel like that process of how that changes is the main point of the film itself.
And somehow there is also a contradiction there, because
right.
I mean, he doing that is also for his family. Yeah.
Right.
So, and also for not losing this status that they already have and the life that they already have been living,
right.
what they are used to. Because when losing his job, it's not just his life,
right.
the one that changed. It's the life of the family that
right.
changed. However, in both stories, they are somehow talking about these, let's say, workers.
Right.
Yes. But there is no a critic direct to the system, because it's the system the one that is doing somehow that they are just losing their jobs. Yes?
Right. It's interesting because, as you just mentioned, it's not, okay, the story itself doesn't evolve around just one person, because, as you mentioned, the main character, Bansu, does all this for his family eventually, and it's impossible to not tackle the social structure or how this plot eventually evolves, because that's kind of the center of it. And as you mentioned, what's interesting is that there are some parts that are different from the original. Even though the plot kind of unfolds the same way, what we see within the novel that you've just described is that we see this brutality of the capitalistic competition, how the main protagonist kind of does this all to survive, and that's where the satire comes out. more so in Park Chan-wook's film, I feel like he expands it into the psychological drama. So apart from exploring and diving into the social satire, as you mentioned, he adds in the element of, whether it be family, how Mansu thinks, what this entire psychological drama happens behind our main character is added. And also, I feel like that transforms it into a movie that's unique of Park Chan-wook himself.
100% agree, like in the sense that like the portraying of the family is like interesting because we are seeing how is his relation with his daughter,
Right.
like just like his kid that is a teenager,
Right.
and then his wife, and how like doing the fact that he lost his job, how like things are changing also like inside of the family. And there is one part that maybe is not that important, but like for me was like they have 2 dogs,
Right.
and then like kind of well, do we have the money
Yes.
like to still have the dogs,
Right.
and like not having the dogs at home change also kind of the mood of the family or
Right.
the emotions of the kids. So all of these kind of details kind of build
Right.
like this psychological setting that you were just talking about.
Right, I think that's an excellent explanation of it. And I think it's interesting how this aspect of family adds into the movie. And because that family is added, it kind of reflects the value of the Korean society or the social norms and the social structure. And I think that's something that's really differentiated with the novel. And, in addition to the points that you've just mentioned. And I guess what we've talked about sort of reflects our overall, impression or the review of the movie. But for you, Andrea, what did you think about the movie in general, apart from all the cinematography that we just talked about?
Well, so I just went like to the cinema. I watched the movie at the cinema, and I mean, I'm a foreigner, and my Korean, despite that I'm learning and everything, is not the best.
Yeah.
So, like, just kind of having the experience, like, to see the movie in Korean and trying also, like, to
Interpreting,
understand.
right.
So, it was nice. I think that is a good exercise. So if you are in Korean, you are able to go to cinema, like to just watch this movie or another Korean one, just go
Practice
for it. Because it helps like for you to practice.
Absolutely.
It helps for you to also understand and stuff when you are just kind of watching a good movie.
Right.
And then I think that there were a lot of details that when I was just watching it, they were good. I think autumn was like really there, so
Right.
I think that like when we are starting talking about like the season, it's real.
Right.
That like through the movie we can see kind of the change of time like through the leaves, the change of time through his garden.
Right.
And then I think that the movie itself is like telling a really like nice story of like how families can change regarding like, let's say, things that are uncertain, as losing a job.
Right, exactly. And as we've just already kind of delved into it, this movie itself really does have that aspect of Black comedy. We've talked about social satire.
Yeah.
We've also delved into the part how it really brings out the psychological drama plus that capitalistic competition. And in a way, the way the director actually kind of unfolds it is unsettling, yet these scenes still come out to be very beautiful at the same time. And I feel like the director also uses like mise-en-scène in a very effective way to really bring out that message. And I think that's how we should delve into our next aspect of the movie, where we talk about more of the components, including music. And I feel like music is something that music and the mise-en-scène is something that we have to go over with.
Yeah, like, because when you are just watching a movie, yes, like the cast that was really good.
Of course.
Like, yeah, like in this one, it was like, oh, yeah, I have seen this person.
I've seen this person,
yeah.
right.
So, apart like from the cast, like when you are watching the movie, like kind of the perception of the spaces and how they are going like through one place to another one, how they are dealing not just like with other characters, but also like with the surroundings. That one is good. And actually, I found that like the art director was the same one that director Park Chan-wook worked in The Handmaiden.
Oh,
so it was Ryu Sung-hee.
Right.
He also worked in that one. I was like, well, maybe for that it was like kind of this is dark because
Right.
of this. They are using the space in this way for that. So I think that part is also like really well done.
Right. It's interesting to see how they use the space
Yeah.
and how that space is transformed into an effective tool to deliver that message. And obviously, all of these areas or the spaces that show up in the film, I feel like are very meticulously crafted. We obviously know that all these spaces have a big impact within the plot itself. And also, for example, the House of Bansu. I feel like that the place itself shows a lot of emotional weight, and I feel like that's why all these individual places or spaces all have a meaning. And for you, Andrea, you've mentioned how the artistic director has done a good job on exploring and delving into spaces and the plot itself. Is there a specific place or space that stood out for you?
I mean, there were a lot of kind of locations that somehow they used, but mainly it was the house.
It was the house, right?
And then I think that there were a lot of scenes that were recorded like outside, like in the garden. So there was a kind of greenhouse, and I think like while you're watching the movie, you can see how like Mansu has a really close relation like with this garden somehow, because he's taking care of the plants, he's taking care of the trees,
right.
And later we are going to see that like this relation kind of transforms through the movie because of the activity that he does like in the garden. However, like kind of this space and how he, I don't know, somehow transform with the space,
right.
I think it's like interesting.
Right, I feel like all that layout itself is very quintessential director Park Chan-wook, because the style or the use of the space and how that all reflects the message or the values within the movie is very a style that he tries to pursue throughout all of his movies. And as I've mentioned, that really reflects that unsettling and beautiful aspect of the movie. We've also mentioned how it's important to talk about music, but before that, I'm just going to quickly check the comments. Yes, I feel like a lot of the comments mention how it's like a black comedy, but it also has that aspect of like some sort of pessimism, which is maybe why people feel sad about it. And yeah, there's that cynical smile or that cynical aspect to the story itself, which is why our viewers may have had that, you know, feeling when they were watching that movie. So now the movie, the music of the movie. Anything memorable from any pivotal scenes that you've watched?
Well, so I think like there are like some scenes that you are just kind of having. Okay, I remember there is one scene, but I just don't want to spoil the whole thing.
Right.
But like there's one scene which one of the characters is listening to music, and then like kind of out of nowhere the volume is just going up, and then like a lot of actions are happening while like this scene is just there,
right?
And then like the characters are interacting, but they are not able to listen to each other because of the volume of like the music,
right?
But then their actions and the kind of the rhythm of this song kind of go along,
right?
So while they are interacting and the song is just like there,
blasting
it's like
your ears, right?
And then it stops,
right?
And then also like somehow it's like their actions kind of go around like with their rhythm,
right?
So in that way, I think that it's interesting, like the use of the music, like in the movie. And I think that somehow after watching like the movie, if someone asks you probably about the music, they are going to remember that scene.
Right, exactly. Just as you mentioned, I feel like that scene is very pivotal, and that bold transition or that bold use of music, just blasting it in your ears, really does leave a memorable scene to you. And also, I feel like, you know, the reason why the director has done that is because to leave an impact, and because that music goes well with the scene itself too. Now, the music that has been blasting in the background is titled Dragonfly. It's by a very famous Korean singer named Pil. It was released in 1981, so it's been a while now, almost like 40 years. And apart from that, there is a other song that has been also played, which is Kim Chang-won's song, like Let's Walk Together. And I feel like within this movie itself, it's interesting to see how all these Korean old pop songs or pop songs kind of seem into all these scenes. Almost, they seem like they wouldn't fit in. Yeah. Yet, as you mentioned, there's that odd bond that kind of connects this very hectic scene with a very undefining Korean song.
But you know, I think that in that way, it's also cultural background. I think
Yes,
that when a
that's
Korean
true.
person is watching the movie and just listen to these songs,
Right.
probably they are going to have a connection like, oh, it's like
that
from this
song.
person
Right.
and it's about this. But then like for an international viewer, like probably they are not going to have like the same reasoning, right?
Right,
Because they
right.
don't have
That's a
like
good
this
point.
cultural background.
Right.
So I think that that's why we are doing this, no?
Right.
Because
Right.
like we are kind of like, oh yeah, pay attention to this song,
Right,
pay attention
exactly.
to this, because it's like enjoy the movie, but you can also learn about like Korean culture somehow, like
Right.
watching it.
Yes, our international viewers, I hope you got that. Andrea mentioned a great point. Who Reads Story delves in beyond the content, but we also talk about what is, important within the Korean society. What are some values that we can further understand by watching Korean content?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yes.
So now let's go back to the title. Since the beginning, we've mentioned how the title itself is important and has that meaning to it, both in English and in Korean. And I feel like, this title itself is almost as if it's posing a question to the movie. And I think that's why it's important. Like, really, was there no other choice for the main protagonists?
I think that like Mansu's situation was kind of extreme, and I think that till certain point I kind of understand
right.
like why he did what he did.
Right.
But like in another part of my mind is like, I mean, he can change.
He could have done something.
Like other
right.
kind of stuff, like maybe do another job, or I don't know, like kind of choose another thing. So I think that probably there were other options.
Yes. No other choice, but maybe not.
Fixated in that.
Right. That's true.
He didn't like really see like other possibility to continue with his life, because I think that probably he wants to grasp or hand on the status and the life that they have been living like for years.
Right.
So why change if I can continue living in the same way?
Right, because people inevitably, get used to what they do, and that's the tendency that people have. I want to stick with what I've used to. But also at the same time, we do know that, as you've talked about it, Mansu could have compromised. People do make other decisions, even if they're not comfortable with it, or even if that's not what their norm is. And I feel like maybe Mansu should have had other choices. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think that somehow, like through the character, we can see that he was kind of carrying like with
that
the
burden.
decisions of like seeing some situations that were happening with the family, like just a small thing, like the wife wasn't really working while he was working, but then because of this situation she decided like to work. All of these kind of changes were also kind of I don't know, portraying their life in a different way.
Right.
So maybe he wasn't happy like with that like with that change, and that's why he was like, no, I want that job and I don't want change.
Right.
So he fixated. I think that's the thing. He kind of obsessed.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So like we could talk about what other decisions we could have made, but also as the conversation that Andrea and I have just been having, it does seem possible that Mansu could have made other decisions. I think it's just, as you mentioned, because he wanted to stick with the life that he had originally kept, because he was so focused or fixated, as you've mentioned, he found that there was no other choice. Like he was like a bulldozer. He was like, this is the way I'm going. This is all I see. I'm a one-way type of devoted guy. So, okay, I get Mansu's decision, but I don't know. In a way, I feel like we could have made different decisions.
Yeah. I think like when we see this kind of situation, probably he should take also like a moment. Well, let's not talk about the character. Let's talk about like in general. If you lose your job, and well, there is like a small possibility that you are going to do the same. So well, please don't. But in case that's the situation, and kind of all your life is just
surely it's
down.
Devastating.
It's devastating. It's good kind of like surrender like with these people, like there is your family, friends, and try to think options.
Right.
And I think that somehow I didn't see that in the movie. I think that he was carrying like with
all
this
of it on his own.
With just like by himself.
Right.
And then because he was like the head of the family, to share these struggles like with others it was a way of showing him as, I don't know, emotionally open or like sensitive, and he couldn't do that because he was the one that needed like to bring money like for the family. So I think that we can see also cultural stuff
I was
there,
just gonna say.
not just Korean, but like I think like with this idea of the nuclear family, like with the father providing
the patriarchal values,
Yeah.
right? Exactly. So it is in a sense interesting how the characters' decisions also reflect the social values or like the social norms, or like, you know, what it would be like if this wasn't considered as a taboo for some societies. And that's why I feel like our international viewers should also try to dissect into the meaning of the title No Other Choice. And so far with Andrea, we've talked about director Park Chan-wook's No Other Choice. We've talked about The Handmaiden before, and, you know, off the record, we've also talked about like Parasite and all those as well. So for you, Andrea, for our international viewers who are perhaps not familiar with the film itself, how and why would you recommend this to?
Well, I think that when you think about Park Chan-wook, probably the first thing that comes to your mind is Old Boy. But then other movies that are like also like by him are really good. And I think in this case, they're a little bit like kind of different to the ones with The Handmaiden and with the Old Boy. Here, I think there is not a lot of action like in Old Boy, but here, as you mentioned, there is a lot of like kind of psychology. And then I think if you have just time and then you want to enjoy a movie, but also take into account that it's like 2 hours and like some minutes more, like for the kind of the details like to go, and like to kind of have sense later, this one is a good movie like for watching like with friends and then discuss like, what is he going to do now? Like, I mean, you can watch it alone. I watched it alone. It was nice. But then I think that this movie, it can be nice to watch it with friends or family and kind of discuss. Like, oh, what is he going to do now? Oh, what do you think about that scene? So, yeah, like kind of like if you do it with a group of friends or with other people, I think it will be a nice experience. And I think like maybe for children, this one is not the best
most
movie.
Appropriate.
I think that, like kind of after, I don't know, 15, I think is like the age like for this one. So maybe after that, it's okay.
It's okay. Right, so just like Andrea mentioned, for our international viewers, you know, maybe have someone else to watch it with so you can have the discussion just like we had right now. And I feel like this movie, a lot of people have been saying that, you know, this movie kind of shows director Park Chan-wook's new color. Some have given reviews that this is apparently his most funniest movie. So for our viewers that haven't watched it, maybe give it a try and maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. No other choice.
Maybe you are going to like the emotional journey that this character has like through the movie.
Right, exactly. So that is all we have for today. Thank you for being with us, Andrea. With Andrea, we've talked about director Park Chan-wook's No Other Choice. That is all we have for today's Korea Story. We will be back with another episode on Korean content next week. Till then, goodbye and thank you.
Bye.